and welcome back to another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. As always, I am your co-host. Anthony's your other co-host, and here we are rocking on a live Wednesday session. We're talking about not fighting with the kids. Anthony, this is an excellent subject. We get this frequently. So much conflict in the home. So we're going to talk about how to conflict resolution. We're going to talk about ways that we go about it, ways that you can. But before we do all of that, make sure you've liked, subscribed, share the good word, because we got to let YouTube know that fathers are looking to talk and parents in general are looking to talk about peacefully connecting with their children. We're not doing the whole thing of sit down, shut up, go in the corner, be quiet. Good kids are kids that aren't seen or aren't heard, but they're seen. We don't play that here. And we've got to let YouTube know that people want to know about that. And that only happens if you put the good word out there. So do that. Now, before we dive into it, as always, Anthony, what's up, man? What's happened since last Wednesday?
What's going on, brother? Nothing, man. Life is good. Getting after it. Kicking off Dad's Day every day of the week. Well, Monday through Friday. Enjoying those conversations a lot, man. A lot of interaction, helping fathers, man. That's what we do, right? We get answers to important questions, difficult conversations, and I'm loving it.
What I love about that, what I love about the conflict too, is because we're talking about fighting with kids. Dude, there's a lot of conflict when we talk about peaceful parenting. We've got men who come on, they have different perspectives, different ideas. Some are still pro corporal punishment. They'll come on to those Twitter spaces, and we've got to sit there and go idea for idea. We've got to match each other and see what it is that we're going on about. And when you do that, you really understand why you stand the way you are, or why you believe what it is you believe. And on a Twitter space, like right now, they can see us, but there's not many that we're interacting with. On the Twitter space, they can only hear us. But man, there's like 20 other dudes on there. And every night we've had panels with like 5 to 7 different men throwing out different ideas, trying to match it all together. What I love about all of it, it's not the conflict, it's not the agreement with us, it's the people are talking about it. We have fathers talking about fatherhood, man. And I don't care, left, right, straight, backwards, whatever. They're talking about dad, being a better dad. And here we are getting that discussion going, man, which means we're achieving our objective.
Yeah, no, and I love it, man. So think about what you just said, Zach. And I know you think about everything you say, but we're having discussion. We're not fight. For the most part, we don't fight. There's no arguments. We're talking about things that are making us better dads, how to be better parents. We have mothers come on. We have people who don't even have kids who say they want to have kids. And we have those discussions. And we do it without conflict. Why can't we do that in our home? Why can't we talk to our kids like adults? Treat them with respect, try to understand what they're saying and show them compassion, right? Have some sympathy or some understanding for what they're going through instead of always demanding that they just listen or they just follow our lead. So I think there needs to be that mutual understanding within the home.
Do you think it's safe to say that parents don't want to fight with their kids? Do you think that's a safe assumption?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Who wants to fight?
So then why do you think it's so frequent? People, well, let me say this. People don't want to have, they don't want to be stressed out about their bills. They don't want to be overweight. They don't want to be sick, yet they continue to eat the food. They continue to live with the poor habits. They continue to spend money on things that they shouldn't spend money on. So why are we seeing such a disconnect here? Because it's not just fighting with kids. That's obviously what we're talking about today. But why are people having such a hard time aligning what they want with their actions to getting what they want?
I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons. I would say before we dive too deep into that with like trauma and people not handling their own stuff, I would say that we don't understand that um, all fights can be prevented. Right, everything that you're going through, it can be prevented, and I think prevention is key. So if you look at a lot of the questions we get and what dads or parents, moms are facing, right? It's always the same stuff. It's waking up for school, it's brushing your teeth, cleaning your room, eating dinner, doing homework, curfews when your kids are older. And a lot of parents are struggling with regulating screen time. So all those can be prevented. But the problem that I see and why it keeps happening is conflicts can't be solved in the moment, right? Conflicts are solved previously or from preparation. And I don't think there's enough emphasis on parents being prepared, right? It's like we wait for the tipping point, we wait for the boiling point, and then we address the issues, right? It's I would say it's a lack of emotional regulation within the adult, and they're not setting the example for the kid. So what happens is the kid gets angry or the kid gets frustrated, and we see that as a threat, right? And we don't let them be angry. We tell them to, be quiet, stop crying, shut up, leave me alone, just listen. So what we're really doing is teaching them to suppress their feelings. And I think that shows up within ourselves later on, right? That's how we were raised. So now when our kid is pushing our buttons, we're constantly suppressing. And then there's a point where it boils over and we get angry and mad. And what we're doing is we're showing our kids we're not self-regulated. We can't handle big emotions. So when your kids go through those tantrums, or even when they disagree with you, that's when we have to be calm, right? In those moments, like I said, the fights and the conflict can't be solved in the moment. So what we do is we need to teach our kid to regulate themselves and tell them, hey, listen, it's okay. You can be angry. You can be mad at dad. I can take it. Don't worry. I'm the adult. I'm strong enough to take your pushback. And when they calm down, that's when you teach the lesson. And that's when you talk about how we can do it a better way next time.
That's an excellent point. It makes me think of the fact, or it makes me think of the example of all the fathers out there that we've seen of, I'm the dad, so you just have to do it. You just have to deal with it. Who are you to question me? And so I think it's a combination of two things going on here. I agree with what you said. I don't think there's enough preventative measures taken. It's always corrective action. And that corrective action is always at level 10. So you could handle it early on at level 3, preventing it from hitting 10, but most of the time they don't. And so what I'm seeing here, it's a combination of ego attached to the adulthood. I'm the adult. I'm in charge. I'm the authority. Do as I say. It doesn't matter if it makes any sense. It doesn't matter if that's conducive to a healthy relationship. You just want them to obey you. You're looking for blind obedience, absolute submission. And so that is an issue of itself. The second part is in the home. It seems as though parents are so stressed out with trying to keep up with all of the other things going on in the world, all the distractions that we see, that they're not being, and I say this in a good way, they aren't selfish with their time. Meaning they're giving so much away to the TV, so much away to the news, so much away to gossiping with friends that they have no patience for their kids. They have nothing left to give them. They're like, just be quiet. I don't care about what you're going through. It doesn't matter to me. And so that perception of what their issue is as not being important, then you dismiss a kid enough times, they're pissed off. They're like, nobody's listening to me. I never get to have input on my life. I live in this home and you dictate everything that goes on. I don't have a say at the table, yet I'm supposed to be a part of this family. And you've got pictures of me smiling over your social media. I don't like this. And so they're pissed. And all of a sudden you've got a whole conflict. And it's like, man, I love my children, but I'm always fighting with them. And I don't know why. And I think this discussion is going to help people see here's why these fights keep coming to the table. Here's why they keep surfacing. Everybody's overlooking the root cause, which is the kid's not being heard. The need is not being met. There's something going on there. And I would go so far as to say, because the parent hasn't gotten to their level and explained it to them and said, hey man, here's what I'm going through, that the kid can't even see it through their eyes either. So they're not learning what it's like to be an adult, having to manage multiple things, and they're not being able to live out their childhood because they're being controlled the whole time. Neither party is winning, or neither party. I don't know, neither. Both parties are not being heard.
No, man, and I agree with that. Right? There's at a certain level when we give our kids not only respect, but when we give them attention and we let them participate, be a part of what's going on, they're going to be more receptive, right? They're going to listen. If we listen more, they're going to listen more. I mean, it can't get any more obvious than that. But I think even getting to the deeper cause, right? If we really want to strike at the root, a lot of parents, you go through these fights, you have a conflict with your kid, you get upset, the kid gets upset, right? There's a power struggle. There's something that can't be resolved. To me, that is a signal that there is something missing inside the parent, right? There's something they're missing. You're frustrated because internally you lack something and you can't deal with this issue. The worst part about that, besides things that you need to work on and fix, your child automatically thinks it's about them, right? They see you getting upset. And kids can't reason that well, especially young kids, right? They can't say, "Oh, dad's just upset because I didn't do the dishes, or whatever. I didn't clean my room." No, what a kid says is, "Man, dad's really pissed off. I must have done something bad. I'm a bad kid." They think everything is their fault. Now, think about if you're in a home and you're a kid And every little thing that happens, all the things I described earlier, right? All these little conflicts that we have. And every time that happens, you get angry, you get frustrated. That's a lot of weight you're piling on your child, right? Stack after stack after stack. And now, how are they supposed to operate in a healthy way and even in a way that they can function normally if every little thing is their fault, right? That's we need to be aware of that, and we need to not only be aware of it, we need to course correct. We need to look inside ourselves and say, "Hey, I need to stop dumping my emotions, my negative feelings on my kids." And back to the conversation this morning, I need to be a better leader, right? I need to lead my kids in a better way. I can't dump my garbage on them and expect them to thrive. It doesn't happen that way.
You made a few references to this morning's discussion. I want to point out, man, we are rolling Monday through Friday. Monday through Friday, we're running an hour long. It's always like an hour and a half long Twitter space. Every Wednesday, we're going live. Every Thursday, you're running the fatherhood discussion that we have within the Fraternity of Excellence. Every Tuesday, we've got the roundtable. Every Saturday and Sunday morning, we've got the morning coffee sessions within the fraternity. I'm probably missing something. On Wednesdays, I've been running interpersonal relationships within the Fraternity of Excellence. We are constantly putting these resources out there. I don't know, a motherfucking duo out there who can keep up with the tempo that we're putting out. I know groups out there that can't keep up with what we're doing.
Yeah, man.
And so, dude, it's funny because I look back, I'm like, yeah, that was this morning. Like just this morning we were doing that. And here we are back at it having the discussion. And it's funny how they're all tied together because every one of these elements, Jackie, she asked me, like, how do you guys come up with topics? Like, how are you going to go the rest of the year? And I was like, babe, do you know how many
That's awesome.
layers to fatherhood there are? Like, there are times, like, discussions like this. We had, like, what, 3 to choose from that we were talking about, like, what we really wanted to dive into. There's so much to be said about this. And that's the thing. When you start taking fatherhood and parenthood intentionally and you make it personal, you make it something you want to be good at. Dude, that's like me telling my son, haven't you had enough baseball? He's like, are you kidding me? Like, what kind of question is this? I don't even understand what you're saying.
It's a trick
You can
question.
always get better. There's always something to work on. And so right now we're talking about conflict resolution, no longer fighting with your kids. I think if we're to pull this back for a second and go at like a direct, hey, how do I just start this process? I understand the theory. I get what you're saying. You're right about all the things you said, but that didn't help me fix it. How do I fix it? And it's in there. I think a great starting point is to stop thinking that everything has to be fixed on the spot through confrontation. If your kid is eating a weird way with their finger, like this, they got that like utensil, instead of saying, hey, eat that, let it go. Not everything has to be a battle. If they want to eat with their foot, let them eat with their foot. If they want to sit and pick around it and like, I don't feel like eating my vegetables today, man, not everything has to be a fight because that's where you make every hill is the hill you're going to die on. Dude, I let things slide with my kids because I'm like, that's not worth it. And you actually said something to me one time. You're like, is this going to impact your son 3 years from now? This conversation right here. And I was like, holy shit, dude. That changed my frame on almost every interaction from here on out. Because I'm like, this doesn't matter. This is such a small thing. It's just me having too much free time to sit and pick at things around me. Like it wasn't a them issue. It was kind of like a combination of I'm bored or something else is bothering me. And I'm kind of taking it out here. When we can realize that and understand ourselves as adults, we can say, hey, what am I going through? This doesn't need to be dumped on the kids. And so for the dad who's coming home from the factory, he's dog tired, been working his ass off to keep the lights on. He just wants to sit and relax. And he comes in the house and the kid drops a plant and soil goes everywhere. I don't know why the kid has a plant, man, but in this story he does. And he drops it. The dad doesn't flip out because he's not pissed off like, oh, work was so hard and now I've got to put it on the kid. The dad detoxed from the factory home. He opens the door. Plant gets dropped. He's like, oh, sweet. Come on over here and give me a hug. All right, what are we growing on the floor today? Let's take this and let's bring it outside. That's such a quick reframe from a dad erupting to a dad having a laugh with his kids. That's how you start it. Your scenarios like that, whatever it is, the arguing, the back talking, the attitude, all those things start with you. And so if you stop making it so contentious in the home, the kids will too.
Yeah. I mean, when did we get so fragile?
Dude, that's a really good question. What? I don't have an answer.
Honestly, man. I mean, no, I just want to point out one thing you said before, Zach, with that we have these conversations and we're always like, we never run out of topics. And I think it's because it's there's so many conversations not being had, right? There's not a lot of dads talking about this, and especially the way that we go about it, right? We're very direct. We share what works for us, and we examine um, when people have questions, right? We get to hear what they're saying, and we give them a breakdown. And never once, um, are there times where we get angry or we get frustrated with people putting us on the spot. And I think that's the examples that we set in our home, right? What you see and how people interact with us online on Twitter and YouTube. That's how we are in our house, right? It's always solution based, and it's the same thing with you were saying. The kid spills something, right? A plant, a cup, anything. It's not reacting in that moment, but it's actually seeing what your child needs in that moment. And if you can do that, you can ease your pain. Right now, you don't have to get upset. Like I said, fragile. You don't have to be so tempted to lash out over a drink being spilled. Then you can talk to your kid. Hey, next time, maybe we need to be more careful, or maybe we need to get you a lid, depending on the age, right? Or maybe we're going to try a straw, maybe whatever. But you always try to find that solution and give them an option. And then once you give them the option of something else, then you let them choose how they want to participate. Right? What cup do you want? We have these are the cups we have. Or, it could be anything depending on what you're dealing with. But I think that's where a lot of people get confused. They limit their kids' freedom. They don't give their kids liberty to choose. Right? It's sit down at the dinner table now. Put your phone away when you're at the table. The child has no concept of what they should do. They're always being told what has to be done. And I think that's where when those boundaries get crossed, when your kid disobeys, which they're going to, it's just like natural instinct, right? A kid wants to do what they want to do. I want to do what I want to do. When people try to control me, I get angry. I get pissed off. I don't want people telling me what to do. I would I would rather have somebody show me than always demand what needed to be done.
You have COVID, man? I better not catch it through this mic. The viruses can go through screens and computers and shit. I better not be catching shit. Hey, so I'm wondering, as you're saying that, how many of these men, there's two things that kind of popped up. One, do you think this is a product of us entering this conflict averse society where we don't know how to handle conflict? Do you think that's playing a role here? Because that part of it is kind of pinging there in my brain is like, hey, people don't even know how to have conflict. Like they don't know how to disagree without making it a personal attack, and I've got to crush you with overwhelming violence because I don't know how to do anything after that. If you push back after my first assault on you, I can't defend my idea.
No, but think about that. That's a great point, right? They romanticize it. There's so many guys who say, "Oh, if I was ever in a tough spot, I'd fucking choke somebody out in 3 seconds." Right? And they talk about what they would do. I think what happens is when anybody's ever put on a spot, they crumble, right? Whenever there's a little pressure applied, they can't face it. They can't deal with it. When we see kids do it, it's easily recognizable, right? We say, "Oh man, those kids have bad manners. Those kids, nobody taught them right." When we see adults do it, we feel bad. We're like, "Oh man, maybe that guy needs our help. He can't stand up to his wife. He can't stand up to his boss." So we kind of give the adults more sympathy than we do the children. And I think what happens is we're when I say we, I mean society, culture. We're producing these adults who don't know how to regulate their emotions, who don't know how to handle conflict, right? I mean, you have um, a whole nation, a whole country that listened to a whole bunch of bullshit rules that completely changed their lives, and they weren't pushing back. They allowed it to happen. Of course, they go online and they complain and they say, "Oh, this is unjust," Second Amendment rights and all the shit. But nobody's really doing anything. They're just looking for more. They're looking for the cue on what they can do, what's allowed, right? How can I have this conflict? What level is the people who control me going to tolerate? And that's childish. That's immature.
Got to give a shout out to Vladimir. He says, "Greetings, great topic. Thanks for tuning in, brother. Keep on going because it's only going to get better. We're diving deeper into this." And so with that, Anthony, something else, when I was saying the conflict aversion, and to your point on what happened on a grand scale, you're not even highlighting this from the beginning. Like this is stupid. Like, why are you blindly obeying? And that led to a lot of our, I think that was pre Oak and Rock. We're like, what is going on here? Like, why are people just doing what they're told by people who have no reason or justification or proof that this is a good thing to go and do? Like, we're allowing them to just tell us what to do. We're like, yes, sir, because we don't want anything taken from us. And we're like, holy shit, this is a childhood issue. Like, and then like the dots started connecting. I'm like, oh my God, it's happening
Crazy.
before our eyes, man. But I was thinking about those guys and not having anything to do with COVID or vaccinations, but I'm thinking about how many men they don't know, they don't ever go through any fatherhood books, they don't go to the blogs, they're not a part of the groups and discussion. And so they don't know why they do anything they do. And so when their kid is saying why, they're angry. And part of it is because they don't know. Just do it because their brain can't come up with another reason because they've never asked themselves, why is this their bedtime? Why don't I want them to play this video game? Why do I care how they eat their food? What is the issue with bedtime and sleeping? Like, I don't know. I've never asked. Shut up, kid. Don't ask me questions. Go brush your teeth. It's almost a protective measure. It protects them from having to ask themselves those questions. And they may not want to know, man, why did my dad do that to me? Why did my mom do that to me? I don't know why I'm doing this to my kid. And dude, I've seen it with you, and I don't know if you've seen it with me, but I have seen it inside the home. When my kids ask me questions or they start to pry, even if I'm frustrated with what they're doing, maybe I don't like the angle they're taking, I can sit there and just have the discussion. It's idea for idea. Because I'll say, well, I think that we should do it this way for this reason. Go ahead. And then Coda or Ava, they'll be like, hey, but what about this? Why would we do it that way if you want to go over here? I'm like, fuck. All right. Well, this, and this. And then it's always the ideas. It's never me crushing them because while they are pint-sized humans, I'm in charge of, keeping alive and feeding and educating and mentoring. They are their own individuals. I look at them the way I look at you. I can't explain this to people more literally. They have that level where I'm going to sit and just listen. Give me your idea and then let's go. If my ideas beat yours, we're going over here. Your ideas might beat mine. And if they do, I'm going to go with you over there. And so there is no real conflict. It's a conflictive discussion, maybe an uncomfortable discussion, but there is no fighting. You will never see us fighting in here. Even when we butt heads, it's more like a blah, 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 blah. Walk it off. All right, are we good? Cool. Let's figure this out. It's never a personal thing that turns into what I would call a fight. And I wish more parents could understand that.
Yeah, no, I mean, what you said, Zach, about how it shows up in society, I think that is something to point out. We think about the movie The Matrix, and it's obvious. Everybody talks about being unplugged, getting seeing what the real world is as opposed to the fake world. But what I think you're talking about, it's not the physical aspects, right? It's not that when Neo unplugged, the real world was dark and controlled by machines, and the Matrix was what we see now, right? A computer generated world. What you're describing is being unplugged, but it's through thought control, mind control, right? It's having people who don't see the abuse of authority. Being raised in a home, they don't see what they're doing to their kids, right? They're not connecting those dots. And we talk to men about this all the time, fathers, about, oh, well, my kids were going to be out of control if I don't. They're not going to know rules. They're not going to know laws. They're going to get their license and drive through stop signs. I'm like, come on, man. So you're going to tell me that you need to hit your kid, which we know causes damage to their developing brains and minds, puts them to learn how to be controlled by threats and fear, all because you don't want them to run a stop sign? This is the logic we're using. And that's a psychological trap. So what we do is we go out and we see the society that's created, and we're controlled through fear. We're controlled by threats. And we don't say, we never say, hey, maybe if we if we remove this from our home, society would look different. Maybe if we found better ways to handle disputes, to handle fights, to handle conflicts with our kids, where we gave them power, but we also got things solved, maybe we wouldn't have adults who grow up and we're so scared to operate outside of the apparatus, right? Outside of the matrix, whatever you want to call it. So I think the mind control aspect is a lot more convincing when we talk about parenting.
People aren't ready to hear this shit, man. Like, it's making too much sense. It's wild to me. What I just did is I kind of put myself in the shoes of a viewer. I'm like, what if I just tuned into this and I'm like, listen to this dude? Because like we have had this talk so many fucking times. You and I privately, not recording content, smoking a cigar on the porch, looking at fucking woods, have had this discussion of like, all right, how the fuck did we get here? Like, what can we do? And how can we capitalize on this and really start helping dudes kind of wake up at a better rate? How can we get better at delivering this message? And dude, when I sat and just listened to you, I'm like, man, that would fuck somebody's world up. Look at the flags behind you. You know, for people who don't understand like where we're focused here, this isn't on, there's no political agenda. This is not a left-wing idea like people have said to us. This isn't a modern weak man's approach like people have said to us. This isn't, oh, we're trying to hook you in to sell you. This shit's all fucking free. We should fucking charge for it. We're putting it out into the world every single day. We're giving content that will literally change your life. And honestly, it's for the point of getting you better connected with your children and helping you and them and your spouse and everybody in your social circle become more free in the literal sense. Not in the perceived, hey, I feel like a free man today. Like in the literally, you're breaking the fuck out of the system sense. And why? Why do we not see adults ever saying, man, I should really give my kid more freedom? I should let them choose their bedtime. I should let them listen to whatever music they want to listen to. I should let them watch whatever they want to watch. It's never that. It's always, I've got to control the music. I'll tell you what videos you can watch. I'll decide your bedtime. I. There is no you in this. Imagine if we let there be a you. Imagine if a parent was like, hey, you, son, daughter, whoever you are in that moment, you choose. You get to pick your path. You get to start learning what it's like to be an adult, where you make your choice and you own the consequences of them. Dude, I don't think that parents are ready for that discussion because we are in such a over-controlled society that this is why we're getting the onesies, twosies, but we're not getting that mass, overwhelming, wave of parents saying, oh, me, I want him, because they can't. Because the fighting is comfortable. They're used to it. We've been conditioned to accept fighting as normal. And so when these parents are looking at their kids and they're going to war with them, and we're coming in and saying, you don't have to fight with your kids, it's so foreign that it's inconceivable. Okay, dudes, you're not going to fight with your kids. They don't even know what it's like to feel good about themselves and to choose their path. Everything they're doing. We had a discussion on Twitter Space where I asked a man, are you living the life you want to live or the one you were allowed to live? And he couldn't answer the question.
No.
And a lot of adults couldn't answer that question because, and this goes back to when you get mad at your kids, they get mad because they've never asked themselves. They don't know why they're living the life they're living. They don't know why they are who they are, why they give the rules they give to their kids. They're just doing the things they think they're supposed to do, not realizing they were told they're supposed to by somebody that's looking to keep them in a little box. We're breaking boxes, man.
Hell yeah. No, and that's the thing, man. If people answered that question honestly, Zach, they would be stunned, right? They would shock themselves.
It would hurt. If we're being honest, it would hurt for a little bit.
Absolutely, man. And they don't want to hear it. And I think that's why we do it to our kids, because it is, freedom is dangerous. And instead of thinking like you said, with bedtime, let your kids choose their own bedtime. You probably, if any parents are listening to this, their head is going to explode when they hear you say that. Let your kids choose their bedtime. But what does that look like? How do you have bedtime not be an argument, not be a fight, not be a conflict? So again, it comes down to negotiation, right? Everything in life is negotiable. Everything. If you're going to succeed, you have to learn how to negotiate. Kid wants to stay up till 10. You want 9 o'clock. It's easy. Meet in the middle, 9:30. Yep. And they say, oh, it's not that simple. It is if you talk about it. It is if you present it in a way that is beneficial to the child, right? Where the kid can say, oh, Dad wanted me to go to bed at 9. I got 9:30. I'm winning. He can think that. Absolutely think that. He set the time now. He's happy. And then you know what happens is when he doesn't hold to that time, you're like, dude, you picked out the time. You can't even hold to your word. And now you put a little responsibility on him. And even if he doesn't meet it exactly at 9:30, we don't have to punish him, right? We don't have to to hurt him to make him understand the lesson. The lesson's already taught.
And it opens up the door to more lessons.
Yes.
Like you were saying about the word, like now you can have a great adult discussion on exactly that because you allowed it to happen in the first place. You gave them a seat at the table. There's a
Yeah.
hey, you can speak in
Yep.
that scenario, man. And also, when you think about that, you said something, it slipped away as soon as I just said this, but you said something that really stood out to me. And it was talking about you were letting the kid, choose their bedtime. Oh, you said their heads were going to explode. It's because they've never thought about giving their child permission to make a choice. And
Yeah.
you said the child won. I think that little thing is almost, again, inconceivable to many parents out there. The kids can't win. They're not allowed to win. If the kid wins, who am I? I'm just a shitty parent. Hold up, you're a shitty parent because your kid did well? Because your kid presented a great argument? Dude, I've told you time and again, Coda has literally changed my mind about sleepovers, about hanging out or doing whatever, his bedtime. And I'm like,
That's
good on you,
weak.
man. You got me. I was like, I should have presented a better argument. I didn't have one. And so, dude, it's like this plays out in my life. I don't think I'm less of a dad because my kid got his way. He's not going to be some spoiled brat that they go to like this crazy thing, like, oh, he's going to be a piece of shit. Anybody that knows my son knows he's a very kind and good human being. He's a great person to get along with. He'll sit and talk to you. Like, he's not like, I can't think of the kid. Is it Richie Rich? The spoiled brat that like had everything? Whatever, that kid. Because you let your kid get something doesn't mean they're going to turn into a fucking monster.
Could you imagine that thinking? But where
But that's how they
where do we
think.
see that? If you give the citizens too much freedom, we're gonna have chaos.
Oh shit.
Right? If we let them choose what kind of guns they want to have, if we let them
31:45, we got to timestamp that one. That holy shit, dude. They're the tyrants that they're bitching about online, man. They're literally acting the way the government acts. Holy fuck.
100%. 100%, man. But going back to the negotiation. Oh man, I had a point, but I think when we don't allow our kids to negotiate, what we do is we set them up, like you said. Parents don't want their kids to win, right? Is that what you said earlier?
I took that from you.
Yeah. Well, whatever. I'm taking it from you now. So think about that concept. When they're young, we don't want them to win. But as they get older, how much pressure do we put on kids to win? So how can we expect our kids to succeed with going to college or getting a career or at high school sports when they're little, we don't even want them to succeed with cleaning the room or eating their dinner? We force them to lose those battles, and then we expect them to grow up and have this concept of how to be resilient, how to push through hard times. We're destroying them. And not only are we destroying them, then we put his expectation on the kid, and most kids don't meet the expectations, and then they say, why do you fail? Why are you so bad at that? Why are you so stupid? Why are you so lazy? How come you can't get this done? There's never a moment where that kid was built up to face a challenge later on in life. And then we say the famous phrase, the kids these days, they're fucked up, they're lazy, they're stupid. It's a bad cycle, man.
Bro, are you taking PEDs? Like, you've never like, that was a fucking 1-2 combo of ideas that we've never broken down like that, and you just fucked my world up. We're going to be talking about this after. Like, we got to stay on track here. And with that, I want to highlight Dave A. He says, great point. Thanks, brother. I know you're talking to Anthony on this one, so I'm taking that off the screen. I got to get some good points in. I got to put the tally mark up there because you just crushed it, dude.
I think I'm still far behind, but I'll take it.
So you're on the board at least. It's not a shutout. But when you look at it, man, when we talk about kids not having resiliency, what is resiliency? It's being able to continue to push after there's a conflict, after you're knocked down, getting back up. There's many ways to say it, but it's always about getting back up. Kids in their homes are not allowed to get back up once the parent says no, because once you start arguing, it's a full-blown, overwhelming parent over the child. They're not allowed to talk back. They're not allowed to disagree. They're not allowed to do it their way. They've got to do it your way, mom and dad. And so we can't say kids don't have grit, kids don't have resiliency, and at the same time prevent them from ever developing a ability to push back. And again, I try to use my family as much as possible in these discussions because I don't want this to come across as some esoteric, unique thing I'm talking about, nor do I want it to come across as theory. This is real life. And there are times where I'm talking to my son or my daughter and I can see their brains turning and I'm like, shit, here we go. They're about to drop something. And they come back and I say this and they come back with that. And now I'm like, all right, good one. Good
Yeah,
point.
but does that disrupt you?
No, I sit there and I have to think about it. I've got to absorb what they said, man. I got to think. I'm like, all right, good point, good angle. I hadn't thought of
Who the
this.
hell raised these kids?
Yeah, man, you joke, but there are people out there who are sitting there watching this like, you too, pussies. You let your
Yeah.
kids talk to you. And I guarantee you see those kids, they're fucking terrified and they're mentally weak,
Yeah.
mentally fragile, especially the bullies. Why do you think the bullies who are bigger, more aggressive, once you flick them in that little chink in their armor, all of a sudden they crumble and they turn to tears and
Yep.
they've got to lash out with violence because they have no grit. They've got no resiliency. All they have has been had their ass kicked and they just pass that on to the next person because the pain hurts them.
Yeah. Intimidation, fear, threats. That's what they operate on. But Zach, what you were saying was great. It was a good point about allowing your kids to express themselves, to have an opinion, to have their views, and to be a part of the conversation with you. And when we don't give that to kids, it shows up later, right? When kids are younger, what do? They suppress. They don't. The parent is always right. The kid is not going to get into usually into an argument with the parents. But where it shows up really bad later on is the teenage years. And this is what I think if if you could allow your kids to express themselves at a young age and invite their conflict, invite their disagreement, when they get older and they become a teenager and now their voice is deeper, they're bigger, they're stronger, you won't be so scared, right? You won't see it as such a threat because it's been happening their whole childhood. It's a normal occurrence. It's a healthy human activity to have conversation, to disagree with people, right? To make people, when you talk to people, make them have good arguments. Don't make them just say, "No, you're wrong. Shut up. I'm right because I'm bigger because I have on a fancy suit or I have on this hat or this what is the lanyard? I have a lanyard. My argument's better than yours." It doesn't work like that. Let people have a good argument. Let them be a part of the conversation, and that has to be with your kids. When my kids were younger and they grew up, they became teenagers. Um, this was this was like eight years ago now. Um, I don't want to say I was prepared, but I had an idea from understanding parenting and reading a lot about it, what was going on. So it didn't affect me negatively. I see way too many parents go through those teenage years that have constant conflicts, that have fights, that lead to resentment, that lead to hatred. Right? You're raising teenagers that hate you, and I know parents are going to be like, "Oh, well, you don't want to be your kid's best friend. It's okay if they hate you. It's okay if they hate you when it's life or death, when there's a serious issue going on that you have to protect them. It's not okay if your relationship is built on hate. You are the parent. You need to fix it. You need to repair it. And you need to find things that are going to improve it and make it better. You can't put that on the children. And too many parents, that's exactly what they do. I'm not going to give you love. You can continue to hate me, but you better clean your room or you better listen to me.
And they say it's for the betterment of the child. I'm doing this for you. It's the same parent. I would die for you, dude. You wouldn't live for me. You wouldn't.
They're
You
not.
wouldn't get yourself healthy for me. You wouldn't try to change your parenting for me. You wouldn't read a parenting book for me. But you would take a bullet for me. What the fuck do you think I'm going to get shot? I like. Hey, how about I take the bullet? I'll take that one, and you do the other side. How about you live for me during that time? And if the bullet does get shot, fuck it, it hits me. I'd rather the decades of us getting
Take the
together than that
odds.
one random ass fucking chance where you're a hero like Keanu Reeves jumping out of a fucking speeding bus to take a bullet or some shit. Because that's not going to happen. But that's where we go. Because the parent knows, oh, I would die for my kids. That makes you sound good. It makes you look good. But what we're talking about is real connection. I don't care about the appearance of success and connection. I want to see it happen. I want to see it play out. And when you
Yeah,
do
man.
that, you can build bonds, man, that transcend just that literal home. You build a bond that when that child is light years away, they're on a trip to fucking Hawaii. They're on a trip somewhere that's just way too far. And you're like, man, like you gotta let them go that distance. They still feel that bond to you. They still come home. They still call. They still think of you. They still want to share things with you. You're still with them to a degree. But that's built in the home. If you can't build that, then that's why kids run away and they don't ever come home. They don't call. You have to convince them to see you on Christmas. Dude, you see these families where they're like, oh, I have to go home and check the box. Dude, you don't want that bond with your kid.
No.
Like, you don't want that. You want love, you want connection. So why aren't you treating your child like somebody you love and want to connect with? You're treating them like an indentured servant. You're treating them like somebody who came from a foreign country, lives in your house, and is supposed to like clean up and just do what you tell them to do. You're not treating them like somebody that you brought into this world, that you love, that you nurture, that you're caring for, that you're looking to raise. They're not your fucking maids. They're not your servants. They're not your punching bags. They're not your emotional dumping grounds. What they are your children. Treat them like your children. Treat them like someone you love and you want to bring to being a better person.
I'm laughing at Mahoney's comment.
Big Rick, when I hear a parent say, I can't wait for these kids to be out of the house, I'm pretty sure their children feel the same way. Dude, you fucking hit the nail on the head.
No, I mean, Zach, you were saying like when your kids leave the house, right? Eventually that day is going to come. For me, sooner than you.
I'm not ready for that, man.
No, I know. I'm not ready either, but it's going to happen.
It is. It's a part of it, man. I get it. I'm ready. I'm ready, but I'm not ready, if that makes sense.
No, but what I think about the examples, you know, let's say your kid's 25, leaving the house, going to go create their own life. You should be really certain or confident in what you've shown them on how they need to operate to be a high functioning, successful human being. If all you did was win fights, never have your kid be a part of it, or maybe win a few here and there, if everything was punishment, if everything was threats, you better be certain your kid is going to go out into the world and they are going to let other people treat them that way. That's the lessons they learned. Your kid, you know, my middle daughter went to Hawaii for 2 months. She wanted to move there and live there, but she luckily came back. She had different plans. But when she was gone for 2 months at 20 years old, and I was like, man, this is tough, right? We all missed her a lot. But to some degree, I knew and I was confident in what I taught my daughter. The conversations we had about relationships, about how people should treat you. And I tell her, don't let people mistreat you. Don't let people manipulate you. Don't ever let anybody put a hand on you. The only way that is going to work is if I live by my words, if I have integrity 100%. And I follow the rules that I give my kids. Parents say all the time, oh, kids need rules. Kids need rules, absolutely. But if you're breaking rules, your rules don't mean shit. Your word doesn't mean anything. The kids are not going to listen to you. They're not going to follow you because you're setting an example of somebody who is fake, somebody who does not care about them. You become somebody who only cares about yourself.
Well, and think about that too. The hypocritical nature. If they can't trust you, or if that's what love is, then that's what they expect from others. That's what they'll accept from others. It's okay that you broke your word. My dad did too. Some people are allowed to do that. It's unfortunate, man, and it's sad. But when I think about this, you know, when I think about the fear that parents have of those kids going, a lot of adults, you'll see them hold their kids back. Oh, you like your daughter. Oh, you can't go there. It's a dangerous world. It's so scary out there. It's a dark world. You hear that. When I said I'm not ready for my kids to go, I meant that in the context of I love them being around me. Not I'm afraid of them going. I just enjoy their company. They're good human beings, and they're 12 and 9, so I got a little bit of time. They got a few more reps to put in before they go after the world.
Yes.
But there's no fear there, and there won't be outside of just your normal fear of just anything, dude. And so the parents who they don't invest the time in teaching the kids how to operate in that world, they're fucking terrified because they know they didn't. And those kids are going to go out there and they're not armed. They're not ready. Now, the parents who invest the time, they teach their kids, they let them be adults before they're 18. They expose and they have the conversations. They're doing the talks that other parents aren't doing. They're talking about religion. They're talking about conflict. They're talking about sex. They're talking about money. They're talking about health. They know they did all they could do, and their kid's going to go and he's going to be all right. Because in your home, they were already making their own choices. They were already living like an adult. They just happen to be with you. And so they go from child living in your home to kind of like a roommate. They're there, they're living there, they're doing their thing, they're interacting. They're still your kid. I'm not saying that there's a division of the relationship, but they're acting like they're going to act when they move out. They're showing you that they can put themselves to bed and wake themselves up. They can get themselves to their job. They can do what they need to do. They can go to school. You know, when you see that in your home, you're like, man, my kid's going to make it. And as much as I love them, as much as I love them being around me, They're going to be all right. And someday that's a bridge I'm going to have to cross. And that's cool. And when it does, so be it. Go get them, guys. We're going to downgrade the house, and we're going to kick it, and we're going to go down there and hang out in South Carolina with you guys and watch the Dolphins go by, man. Like, whatever it is. And so
Buy
when I look
acreage,
at this,
baby.
it's a gift you're giving yourself by stopping the fighting with the kids. That connection, that bonds, that replace, because nature hates a vacuum. So when you're not fighting, you're connecting. When you can go back to connecting and doing that, you're giving your future self the greatest gift, the gift of a future filled with love, of connection, and of less fear. Dude, my kids are going to crush it. They're already crushing it. I see them with their peers. I see them out there with absolute strangers. I see them with other adults. They're going to dominate. And I don't give a fuck if that's unfair to others. I'm trying to help those other parents give their kids that same advantage. So not only is it a stable home, but I'm making these kids aware and prepared for the real world that they'll be facing. So in our controlled world, we can introduce them to things and then they go out and test it. That's what happens when you're connected with your kids and when you're not fighting with them.
Yeah, and think about that world that's being built, right? Think about all the parents who say that the way we parent or what we talk about is raising weak kids. What you just described is a child who's going to be confident, who's going to be resilient, who's going to go out into the world and dominate, but they're also going to be available to help those who suffered, help those who are in pain. Like, I mean, look what their dad does, right? He's capable, he's strong enough to carry that burden, to say, hey, listen, man, I've done enough work on myself where I can lend a hand to other people. Those are the type of kids I want to raise, right? I don't want my kids to be bogged down by the masses and be controlled, right? I want them to go live free, to try to find liberty and the enjoyment of life, but at the same time be able to share that with people. Like, tell people that um, life isn't. I'm trying to think about one of the guys on the Twitter space arguing with me that about how bad life is, right? How bad the world is and dark everything is. And I'm like, dude, that's your life. That's your world you've created. I don't live in that realm. Yeah, there's bad things that happen, but my world is in my home. My world is in my circle, in my community. It's not dark. It's fucking great, man. I'm working on it all the time. I'm trying to build it. I'm trying to make it better. I don't submit to fear. I don't let people control me. And I could, and to a degree, I sympathize with them. Because if you let people control you, if you're still that little child whose parents are controlling them, the world is going to look scary, dude, because your home was scary. It's that obvious.
When you connect, and dude, I like how you tied that up. That was a soft toss. I'm about to hit this shit out of the park. When you connect like that, when you stop with the fighting, you stop with the fear of your kid challenging you, you stop with the fear of your kid coming at you and you not being able to defend your stance. When you get rid of that fear, you're able to capitalize and thrive in an environment where other people can barely survive. And so look at your tank top. You're wearing Fraternity of Excellence. You're co-owner of a fraternity of men who are absolutely out there crushing it. And you said something in there the other day. You said, hey, when the stocks are down and the crypto's down, this is the perfect opportunity for us to get up. So how do we get up? And I was like, damn, that's the kind of question everybody needs to be asking. People need to be asking themselves, when the world is weird, how do you capitalize? This is a great opportunity for you. How do you thrive in a world like that? How do you get ahead? Everybody's scared and they're running away. Very few are walking directly against the wave of people running to the hills and saying, I'm good. Let's go. Let's see what's out here. What opportunities is this presenting? What doors have now opened because the world is the way it is? And those who are panicking, freaking out, they are afraid. They're just as afraid as those parents in there saying, what if my kid argues with me? What if I let my kid look like he's right? These other parents are going to think I'm a weak parent because I didn't beat him into submission. Dude, I can't relate with their mindset, but I can understand they are driven by the outside world because they're consumed by the outside world. And the outside world lives in their head and in their home. And it's tearing them apart. And that's why all this fighting is happening. There's such a division between parents and children. We're talking about bridging that gap. And when you can do that, there's no fear. You're not going to fall. The bridge is secure. Your home's secure. Your mind's secure. We talk about the trident, the mind, the body, the spirit. You got it all locked in. You're not afraid. And so now you're a fucking living example. You're that one beacon who's saying, hey, motherfuckers, stop running away. Let's face this challenge. Let's directly go against this conflict. And there's a lot going on in the world, and there's almost too many angles for me to discuss it. But with what's happening with our government, I'm going to focus in the United States, with what we see happening with our economy, Dude, shit has gone sideways. And now, if there was never another time in your life that you thought about parenting differently and you thought maybe I should mix some things up,
Nah,
now is a really good fucking time because it's like all the pieces on the board have been slapped around. So why the fuck not? Why not decide, hey, you know what? Fuck it. Left's right, up's down, gay is straight, like boys or girls. I'm going to be a parent who doesn't hit. Fuck it. We might as well throw our hat in the ring and see how we do
that's
it.
it.
That's like, what do you have to lose to stop hitting your kids?
I love how we have a topic, and for some reason we always go sideways, right? We always get into that fuck authority kind of mentality. But I think it's relative, right? It's
It's a
all
personal fight too.
no, it is, but I think it's good that we can in the first half, right? We can discuss the actual topic and give advice and give some reasonable ways to handle things, but then get to why that might be there, right? Why we have this fear of our kids saying no to us or our kids disputing things in the home, and really where that stems from, and how that's really controlling our lives, and how we can't move past it, right? It's not only does it trap you in the home, but it traps you outside, right? It makes you incapable of moving forward, because how the hell are you going to be able to create the life that you want if you can't even let your child create the life that they want, right? If you can't even take the time to let your kid decide how they're going to live, how are you going to decide how you want to live? And you don't even see the strings that are controlling you, right? The strings that are attached to you. You see it clear as the parent, because obviously that's why you're doing it, right? You have that power over your kid and you're telling them how they should live their life. But then you say, no, nobody controls me. It doesn't work like that. Right. And it really doesn't. You can't be a free man if you're not giving the people in your life freedom. It does not work like that, right? You can't love yourself if you're not giving kids in your home love, right? What you can do is be a scared, weak man who fears authority, who lets people tell him how to run his life or how to live his life. You can give that to your kid real easily, right? You can just say, "Hey, it's done to me. I'm going to do it to you."
Well, think about the
I'm
extent
thinking.
people, no, this is good, man. The extent people will go for others. People will wear a mask. They will socially distance. They will telework. They will do backflips, man. They will sit 6 feet apart. They'll have their desk in their office all fucking weird. They'll wear 6 masks on their face. People will literally get shots and booster shots and 3 shots in their arm of experimental juice. They will do that for the perception of, I want to help other people. I want to do the right thing. I want to be here for you. I want to support you guys. And they won't allow their kid to stay awake for 30 minutes more at night. They will literally inject themselves and change whatever the fuck is inside them, but they won't allow their kid to do something on their own. Why are we willing to break our backs for strangers for no reason that's justified outside of social acceptance? But within our home, we won't accept, or we won't focus on family acceptance. We won't focus on welcoming our children. The laws that we will follow that are absolute bullshit, and the laws that we apply that are absolute bullshit, are fucking insane. It's insane. And it's driving the point that you're talking about. No free man is going to give the world more than he's going to give his family. A free man's going to take care of himself because that's where his focus is, on living free from the restraint and the pressure and the expectations of society. He's free. He chooses, he allows his children to operate the way he wants them to operate. And I say that in the context of, in the way of like, hey, I'm going to allow my kids to be my kids. They're going to be who they are. Like that's what I want for my kids. I want them to be themselves. So maybe that means I stay up later. I'm not saying let your 10-year-old sit in your bed and smoke a cigar. People go to these ridiculous like visions of like what it's like. Oh, you wouldn't hit your kid. That means that you would let a tiger go after them and you wouldn't push them out of the way. You're like, what the fuck? This is back to the take a bullet for your kid thing. You got to go that far. You have to go to such an extreme to prove me wrong, which really highlights to anybody who has any sort of logic and reason in their mind that my argument is sound. Because you can't fight me for an argument. You've got to talk about tigers and bullets. You can't talk about bedtime
Lions and tigers
and sleep
and
time and
bears.
food. You got to talk about some crazy shit. And it trips me the fuck out, dude. Because it's like, you have to go to such an extreme to prove a point that maybe you should just stop being so fucking extreme. Come back to normal land where I'm talking to these fathers like adults, and let's talk about what we're really talking about. Let your children be children, give them freedom to make some choices, and work with them. Hey, instead of a cigar, maybe just a cigarette in the bed. I'll meet you in the middle. I don't know why I'm on tobacco.
It's crazy. It's crazy when we hear the arguments all the times, man. All
Holy
the time.
shit, Dave A. Perfect.
That's good. We hear it all the time, right? Dads say these outlandish things like, "Oh, if you don't hit them, then they're gonna climb, the Eiffel Tower." Why can't you have? And it sounds when people say it kind of it hits me, and I'm like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" Well, when you just said it right now, man, it was hilarious. It's coming from a different angle. But why do you? Before we wrap it up tonight, why do you think that is the default of most, especially dads? Why do they always go there? Why is it the extreme?
Well, they have to prove you wrong. If you have any ground, then it's going to make them look extremely bad.
Isn't
They
it
have to find
similar?
a way to. They've got to flick a card out from your house of cards.
Well, it's similar when they say we have to ban semi-automatic guns. They don't even know what they're talking about, right? It's an extreme.
It's an assault rifle. That's what AR stands for.
Yeah.
I don't think you know what you're talking about.
Exactly. No,
But-
yeah.
No, I was going to say, look at, even to bring it closer to home, they'll sit there and you'll see men go out there and they will defend their right to bear arms, but they will never defend their children's right to have a fucking opinion. What the fuck is that about?
What is going
Second
on?
Amendment, which was the freedom of speech. Why aren't we talking about that one? Let your kid have a fucking speech. Let them say their fucking piece. Let them have a voice in the home.
If you don't give your kid the right to have an opinion, you're going to lose your right to bear arms. It's as simple as that.
Dude, you're going to lose the right to love. Like, for real, you're going to drive away the thing that you say you love most. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because one of two things happens. The kid disappears. Fuck you, dad. You were a fucking asshole. I'm out. Or the kid becomes the dad. Hey, dad, I love you. I'm just like you. Look, I hit my kid. Like there's I do this whole
There's
fucking
a third
timeline
option,
thing.
dude. The kid disappears, but he's still in the home. Now
Holy shit.
the child doesn't know who he is, what gender they are, what color hair they should have, who they should associate with. Like that's a child who's completely lost, doesn't know who they are, but they're still in the house because they can't leave.
Damn. It's like the absent father they see daily. You're there, but you're not there. You're not listening. You're not helping. You're not connecting. You're not bonding. You're just there. You're absent. You're nobody. And guess what? When there's no dad there, they find somebody else. They find a gang. They find a political party. They find an idea. They find something. And they identify with that. And that leads to them identifying with whatever comes with that. And that's not your kid anymore. They decided to parent your kid. I didn't raise a kid like this. I didn't raise a kid to be gay or to be this or to be that or to be left wing or whatever it is. You're right. You didn't. You didn't raise your kid to be anything. You tried controlling your kid to be everything that you wanted for them, and you never allowed them to be anything. And so they became whatever they wanted to be or what somebody else wanted them to be.
I got a whole new topic to discuss. Maybe Dad's Day tomorrow morning.
Let's get it.
We could dive into it.
If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and subscribe and spread the good word. We're not paying for ads. We're not doing any of that shit. We basically just come on here, we riff, and the expectation is that the dads who are watching and the parents who are watching, you guys are taking and running with it. If you want businesses to grow that are supporting peaceful parenting, if you want people and the message to grow that is supporting connected homes, you've got to be a part of that. This isn't somebody else's job. It's your job. So if you tuned into this and you enjoyed it, put it to wherever it needs to go. And if you have questions for us, or other topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to shoot us a DM. Our links to both of our social medias are below, or you can join us both inside the fraternityofexcellence.com, where there are a bunch of men in there getting after it every single day. We're talking family, fatherhood, business, physique, mindset, everything it is
taking
to be a
over
man
the
of
world.
excellence. Basically, we're taking it over. And so with all of that, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribed again. And then we'll be seeing you guys live next Wednesday. If you're on Twitter, we run a Twitter space from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. So we'll catch you guys there. And Anthony's going to be dropping a bomb there. He kind of set the stage tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Let's stop the fighting in the home. You guys take care.